Yeah, Fellowship of the Ring is fucking slow, man. The prologue is a drag to read through. I read you the whole prologue, so you guys get an idea of the history of Middle Earth with the hobbits. Obviously, the reason why I'm reading this is I want you guys to get an idea how amazing of a book what J.R.R. Tolkien wrote. At the same time, I want to what all those book nerds out there who've never read Lord of the Rings. I want you guys to what hopefully pick up the book and give it a read. That way, you guys get an idea of how amazing of a book J.R.R. Tolkien wrote. As J.R.R. Tolkien's a legend. Even though the book is, I'm gonna give you a heads up. The book is pretty boring. Obviously, it's boring a lot of sections, but you can't deny the world building. The world building is top notch. It makes the world feel very real, and it stands out a lot on the page. Obviously, whereas my book, the characters, my world building stands out. The difference between my book and J.R.R. Tolkien's book is my world building is amazing too because but the reason why my world building feels very real, even though I give vague descriptions, because I describe the world through the characters' perspective. So instead of me dumping you with a bunch of information telling, which is boring, I describe the lands through and the culture and the customs through the character's perspective, and that makes my world building for real. Even though I give vague descriptions, and so I can do both. Obviously, I can give vague descriptions, focus on the characters, and I can also make the world for real through the characters' interactions with each other and the perspective of the world they're living in, that kind of stuff. And so it makes my world feel real. My world building is pretty weak. It's not as good as Lord of the Rings, but even then, I give what I give a lot of I give you an idea of the world the characters living in through their perspective, and hence why Last of Us is an amazing story. You're looking at the best story ever told, man. You're looking at something fucking amazing. Obviously. So stay tuned tomorrow. I'll start chapter one, Unexpected Journey. How long is chapter one? Give me a sec here. If it's 20 pages, I'll read 10 pages. I'll read 10 pages of the beginning of chapter one. So all you Lord of the Rings, you guys are obviously excited. Oh my god, it's so cool seeing Ivan reading my favorite book. Yeah, it's cool that Ivan takes the time to read my favorite book. Yeah. How long is the chapter? Give me a sec here. It's 20 plus pages. Yeah, I'll read a good, I don't know, 15 pages tomorrow. 12 pages. I'll read 10 pages a day. Yeah, 34 pages. So I'll read a good 15 pages tomorrow, and then I'll read the remaining 15 pages, the remaining 14 pages, whatever it is, the other day. The other day. Yeah, so I'll read 15 pages tomorrow of chapter one. Then the next day, I'll read the remaining of chapter one of Fellowship of the Ring. And that video will be more interesting because now the story starts to kick in, and you also have dialogue. Whereas a prologue, there's no dialogue. Whereas for chapter one, you actually have dialogue for what? You actually have dialogue for the book and that kind of stuff. That's why we're looking at something interesting. You're looking at a top notch reading experience, obviously. I'll do a couple chapters. I'll probably do a good, I don't know, 2 or 3 chapters, and I'll end it there. I'll end my Lord. I'm not gonna do the whole book, no, because that'll take me a long time. But I'll do because I'm making the announcement soon in late October. I'll do a good like 2 or 3 chapters. I'll do the prologue and a good like 2 or 3 chapters of the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring. That way, you guys get an idea of how amazing J.R. Tolkien's book is, as well as all those nerds out there, fantasy nerds out there. You guys obviously want me to read. Obviously, it'd be cool if Ivan did a read along of Lord of the Rings, which is one of my favorite books in ever, right? Because Lord of the Rings is considered like the master of fantasy. Everyone loves Lord of the Rings so much. Do I think it's overrated? No. I'm not surprised why everyone likes Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien's book, because his world building is amazing. Nothing can top that. But at the same time, the book is a bit boring, as he drags on describing the land, the sunset, the trees, the door, the horse. He goes into detail describing Shadowfax, Gandalf's horse, the magic horse. He goes into detail describing the lands, like Lothlorien. You know what I'm saying? He Minas Tirith. He goes into detail describing all those lands. And it's crazy, you know what I'm saying? Hence why you have to get used to the info dumps in Lord of the Rings. As if you're not a fan of info dumps, you will not be able to get through the book. As J.R.R. Tolkien spends what? He spends pages describing the lands, the door, and all that stuff. Right, so stay tuned for my next video tomorrow. I'm going to read chapter 1. I'm going to start with chapter 1, which will be a bit more interesting. I'll talk about what. Stay tuned also at the end of the month. I'm going to make that phase 6 announcement. I'm going to show you guys my layout of my book on Microsoft Word. I'll use my stepbrother's laptop for that. Looking at it very interesting for that. My wife will be jumping for joy because my book is now ready to be something. All I have to do is just go over it and fix the typos. My formatting's done. My content editing, my copy editing is done. My content editing is done. All I have to do is just go over my book and fix a few typos. My formatting is taken care of. I format Microsoft Word. My book is now ready to release on Lulu. You guys still take it for granted. I'll drag it on for another 4 minutes. I'll end the video here. So looking at a 40-minute video here. I'll end it. Let's see. Right? Hence why you better stop taking for granted. I did the math. Man. I said me and my wife are gonna make 9 billion, but I might even make more. I might even make like 10 billion, man. 10, even 11 billion. Like me, I'm gonna make more than 5 billion, guarantee. I did the math. Me and my wife are gonna make like 9 billion plus from the book sales. A good 9, 10 billion even from the Zane's book sales. You're doing something crazy. You're looking at fame 3 times crazier than one. Lord of the Rings, when it came out in the 50s, it wasn't as popular, but in the 70s, that's when it really, really exploded. You got crazy, crazy fame. This book Lord of the Rings sold hundreds of millions of copies worldwide. Well, for Zane, you're looking at something 3 times that. You're looking at something crazy. You're looking at like a billion people. I don't know, 700 million to a billion people buying my book. This has been crazy. And me and my wife are going to make 9 billion, perhaps even 10 billion. Realistically speaking, 9 billion. There's a good chance me and my wife might even make 10 to 11 billion dollars off Zanus. Since me and my wife are going to be fucking loaded, we're going to be so rich. And you're fucking welcome to where I fucking saved your ass. As it wasn't for me, you'd be what? Sabotaging Hollywood, not seeing me. And once the world reads my book, they're never going to be the same. Zanus will be the best story ever told. Yes, even better than Lord of the Rings. As Lord of the Rings, I'm reading it right now. The book is good, but I read Zane's. It does not keep you hooked the way Zane's does. And Zane's is a more interesting book. When I mean interesting book, I mean it's a lot more interesting. Whereas Lord of the Rings is a bit on the boring side. Even though the book's amazing, it's a bit on the boring side. Like quality series, obviously, unheard of world building. But in terms of the story and J.R.R. Tolkien's pacing, J.R.R. Tolkien doesn't have the best pacing, as he spends tens of thousands of words describing trees, talking about the lands, you know what I'm saying, talking about the sunset, and it can get repetitive and get very boring. Talking about the horse, whereas me, I get right to the point, and I give a few details about the lands also, but I get right to the point about what the characters are thinking, what the characters are saying, their conflict, and that's why my story is very interesting. Yes, even more interesting than J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. I know some people think I'm crazy, but once you fantasy nerds, I'm talking to you, all you Lord of the Rings fantasy nerds, once you read my book, you're going to be like, yeah, Ivan wrote a better book than J.R.R. Tolkien's book. Ivan kept me way more hooked than J.R.R. Tolkien, as J.R.R. Tolkien's book's pretty boring. As J.R.R. Tolkien doesn't keep you hooked the whole way through. There's some sections you have to force yourself to read it, because it can get very vague and boring. Right? Whereas me, the whole story you're hooked. Even Volume 1, even though Volume 1 is the worst of the series, even in Volume 1 you're pretty hooked. Volume 1 I'll keep you pretty hooked. And then once you read the prologue's pretty good. You read Young Tacky, that's pretty interesting. Then once you get to 22 years later, that's when the story really starts to kick off. And I'll be taking you for a ride. And it's so good, you fantasy nerds, you fantasy book nerds, I'm talking to you fantasy book nerds, you guys will order food and you're going to read my book because you're going to have a blast. Because I'll take you for a ride the whole way through. As Zane's is such an amazing story. You're looking at something fucking top notch, man. Because Zane's is such an amazing story. Let's see. Anyways, this is it for this video. Stay tuned for tomorrow. I'm gonna read chapter 1 of Lord of the Rings. Okay, interesting. So a very interesting video for that. Stay tuned for that. And also stay tuned for my Phase 6 announcement. This is Ivan Amara. I'm signing out. Peace.